iCommunity shines a light on the wide array of community news, arts and culture, and prolific charity efforts within the Asian diaspora networks. It's where the global Indian impact on the ground is celebrated. Log on at iglobalnews.com. Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's session of the Living Bridge Conversations, the live series brought to you by iGlobal, your multimedia hub for and about global Indians. I'm Tony Patty, your host for today, and I'm joined by Pranav Bhanot, who's been with us before here at iGlobal, but today he's in a slightly different capacity, which I'm going to tell you all about in just a moment. So Pranav is a solicitor at Meeby & Co, working on a broad range of commercial litigation matters. Alongside his busy legal career, he's also a councillor for Epping Forest. So truly a man of many talents. And we're going to find out a little bit more about him today as we talk to him and talk to the man himself. Hello, Pranav, and a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And a quick word for our viewers, by the way, this show is yours too, so make sure you do drop us your comments and questions, and we'll pick them up as we go along in the course of our conversation here today with our Living Bridge Conversations. Pranav, a very warm welcome to you.
Hi, Tony. Good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for having me.
It's really good to see you again, and thank you so much for taking time out and speaking with us here, as I'm sure we're going to be learning a lot from you and taking a lot away from this conversation, which is what this is really all about, right? So we want to find out a little bit about you and your background and what is Pranav Bhanot all about. I know because of our previous relationship and friendship together, but the world doesn't know. And we want to tell them all about the great things that you do, not only for society, but for culture and, of course, people living in this country and abroad as well. Now, first of all, a little bit about you, Pranav. How about you juggling your busy legal career with a demanding political career as a councillor? How do you do it?
Well, Tony, it's a fantastic question, and I'll be as succinct as I can because, as I say, the only people that talk more than lawyers are politicians, and I guess in many ways I wear two hats, one as a solicitor and one as a councillor. So I'll keep it as succinct as I can. But I'd say, the first thing is having a supportive family, and I do have that because a lot of my time is shared with my clients at work and constituents in my constituency, along with family time, and quite often. I drag my son and sometimes my wife with me when I'm meeting residents or whenever we're doing bits and pieces around the local community. So having their buy-in is, I'd say, a massive proportion of being able to balance the various commitments. But, time management, and I know, Tony, you're extremely busy, but I think time management is something I'm sure you know very well and something I'm learning to be better at. And I think it is a real skill to try and master. But, just trying to segment your day, making sure that you can fit time in to give your clients the best service possible as their lawyer. But, in the evenings and weekends when you can get out to helping the community, going to do that community work. So being quite time disciplined and having that time management, I think, is something that I find helps in terms of juggling the various commitments. And, I think everyone says that you've got to be quite hardworking, which is the case, but I think also being able to work quite smartly, knowing when to delegate is something that, again, I think is a key skill and one that I am trying to be better at. So, it is a balancing exercise. I love it. I enjoy it. I wouldn't want it any other way. But I think learning kind of key skills is certainly part of the juggling act, I think.
What I'm understanding here is that you're taking an interesting pragmatic approach to your lifestyle in the terms of how you're managing your time. And it's all about focus and knowing what to do at what times of the day and how to do it properly and efficiently. From that, surely not only your family will benefit, but from the very people that you're serving as a councillor as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, on my last day of school, when I went to study, when I was 18, I was at the same school for 11 years. One thing our headmaster said to us is, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And that really stuck with me and really resonated. And I think there is some merit to it as well. I find the people that are the busiest in society are the ones that are managing lots of things and are able to delegate and manage quite a lot as well. So yeah, I think that is quite true as to what you say.
I love that expression. If you want to do something and manage your time, ask a busy person. I love that. Already, we're taking something away from this conversation with our Living Bridge conversations right here. So thank you for that. As far as the field of politics are concerned, Pranav, we'd really like to know what actually attracted you to politics in the first place. Was it the fact that you knew people of political stance, or you just got attracted through perhaps your education and being a lawyer?
Yeah, I think you the second point, you've definitely hit the nail on the head. So I studied at university. I did a law degree,
Yeah.
and I think one of the things that being a lawyer really kind of teaches you is advocating and fighting for a cause, taking a position and fighting on that position. And as a litigation solicitor, that's what I do day in and day out. But I think what I really like doing is advocating and representing the views of people. And I think at least 80% of the work I do as a councillor is doing that. So, for example, if my constituents aren't happy with the number of potholes on their road, or they're not happy about the service they're getting in terms of refuge collection, that's something that I will go in to the council chamber and talk about and try to advocate on their behalf. So I think this idea of advocacy and representation is something I started off kind of doing during my law degree, and in many ways I've carried on in the political world. And in many ways, law and politics is quite complementary like that. They're almost like cousins.
They are indeed, and I have visions of you standing in the House of Commons, speaking to the Speaker, say, "Mr. or Mrs. Speaker, Pranav Bhanot," giving your fantastic speeches in the House of Commons. I can see it now. I predict it. So I'm sure that is still yet to come. And you're right, politics and law do go hand in hand. And there's a lot of people who are members of Parliament today who are ex-lawyers themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, some are ex-lawyers, and I'm not sure if you read the news last week, but some of them are still working as lawyers as well, and it's been subject to some controversy. I think,
especially for using the House of Commons offices to do their work.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, I think it's always it's something that people have to learn to balance. But I think what's so important, I think, is giving the time necessary to your clients and to your constituents, and that's really what fundamentally underlines some people's concerns, because if you spread yourself too thinly, it may mean that your service offering is going to be somewhat not as good as you want it to be. So I think that is, you're right. There are many people in Parliament who are also lawyers. But I think going back to your original question, one of the other things that I think is so important is, I think any elected body, whether it's Parliament, whether it's a board of an organisation, whether it's a local council authority, I think it has to be representative of the electorate. And it's something I feel quite strongly about. So whether that means, more women, more people from ethnic minorities, I think, whatever organisation your listeners are from, I think it's so important that any decision-making body is reflective of the overall population of that organisation.
Very well said. Very well said. And may I just pick up on that and interrupt you so rudely? But and that is, just look at the cabinet right now, the Conservatives, and look at Boris Johnson's cabinet right now, and look at the diversity he has within his cabinet. And I think that's a very proud moment for us and in this country.
Yeah, I think it is. It is very much so. But when people talk about politics, they're only thinking about Westminster politics. But politics exists all around us, and actually, we would want to see that sort of representation, not just on the front benches in Parliament, but on council chambers, on boards of governors of schools, of big bank organisations. I still think that when you look at the FTSE 100 companies, I think there is still some way to go.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right in your observations, and I think it's great. It's a good start, but it has to carry on across different sectors and organisations as well.
Pranav, looking at your life and doing the balancing act about the fulfilling aspect of your working life towards such heavy schedules, both in the legal world and the political world, it's a balancing act that you have to do and still serve both parties with 100% 100% efficiency. First in the legal world as a lawyer, because you have to be 110% spot on and efficient to know what you're doing. In the political world, you're serving the community and also know what you're talking about. Mentally, physically, it takes a lot out of you. So in terms of fulfillment for you as a person, what does that entail?
Well, yeah, you're right. It does take up a lot. I think the real fulfilling aspect is resolving problems for people, and that's really what I spend almost my day doing. Whether it is solving problems using the law or solving problems using kind of council procedures and policies to try and find a solution, and that's what I really enjoy. It's what I don't necessarily see it as work. I don't.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, give us an example of one of each, perhaps.
all right. So I had a client
Without
call me.
naming names, of course, which we're not allowed to do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So I had a client call me this morning at about 9:30 who has been threatened with being made insolvent because he hasn't paid a debt. So we were giving some advice about how he can get himself out of that very sticky situation where somebody thinks he owes money and he doesn't believe he should be owed that. He should be paying that amount of money. So that's a problem in terms of a debt issue that I do lots on. But then, at lunchtime today, just after we speak, I'll be speaking to a resident who's got a problem with their neighbour because the neighbour has developed in a way that he believes has contravened planning or authority. So in many ways, you can see that it's a problem-solving exercise. It's about working with people, trying to find a solution to everyday problems. People owe money all the time. People have neighbor disputes all the time. And it's about trying to find the most amicable, cost-effective and efficient way to resolving it, whether you're a lawyer or whether you're a politician.
And the one word that resonates with me whilst you were speaking about these two examples is that reassurance. At the end of the day, people want reassurance, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's fundamental, isn't it? The reality is that some of these problems aren't massive problems. They're not always, £1 million debts that are owed. These could be small things like there's a crack on the pavement outside their house and there's an elderly lady who can't get to the post office. Some of these things aren't as, glamorous as sometimes the press makes out. Some of these are everyday things that can be quite annoying and quite irritating for people. And the question is, how do you find the best way forward and reassure them? I think reassurance is a really good word that you use there, Tony.
We are talking with Pranav Bhanot, and Pranav is a lawyer as well as a councillor for Epping Forest as well. He has many talents to his name and does many things in his spare time as well. We're going to find out more about the man himself as we go through the program here today with our Living Bridge Conversations, compliments of iGlobal. Do stay with us. We're back after this.
iGlobal Radio is the brand new hub of podcasts for and about global Indians. News, views, interviews, wellness, money matters, and much more. Tune in to iGlobal Radio at iglobalnews.com.
So a little bit about these Living Bridge conversations that we're participating in, such as the one today. And these have been curated by iGlobal to bring you many such discussions and deliberations. And they will include many foodie recipes, musical journeys, heartwarming anecdotes, as well as energetic fitness routines, festive fashion, and much more, which you are very much a part of by watching this as well. So we thank you for that. So do stay tuned at the iGlobal social media channels for updates and on our regular streams with an array of guests that embody the British Indian diaspora living bridge. And of course, you, our viewers, are at the heart of these conversations. So do join in with your questions in the comments box, and we'll pick those up as we go along through the show. So back to Pranav, who joins us. And like I said earlier, Pranav Bhanot is a lawyer as well as a counsellor as well. And he talks to us today about his life, his missions, and his fantastic journeys as well through life. Pranav, talking about your work in the community, some of your focus areas include what? Because we've touched on this briefly already in our discussion today, but you have certain things that you're focusing in on. What are they?
I think the one of the big ones is community safety.
Yeah.
Particularly as the nights get longer and the days get shorter. We have many people who, because of the pandemic or otherwise, are living alone. So there's an issue of isolation and just not feeling safe in their environment. So one of the projects that we're working on, kind of outside of my role as a lawyer or as a councillor, is trying to ensure that roads are residents who live on roads are actually talking to each other. And the way we do that is quite simply by setting up WhatsApp groups for every road in our vicinity, in our local community, both in Essex and in East London. So over the past 3 years, we've gone around trying to introduce neighbours to each other by way of joining the road-specific WhatsApp group. And so far, we've established about 83 road-specific WhatsApp groups, which connects a total of about 8,000 residents, which I think is going quite well. And I don't do it on my own. We work in a team. But in answer to your question, safety is
it's a splendid idea. What sort of hurdles have you faced in doing that? Because setting up a WhatsApp group for 83 roads already is quite an achievement, I have to say. It's a fantastic milestone for you, but it couldn't have been easy. And what are some of the hurdles that you're facing doing that?
Yeah, I think one of the hurdles is not everyone has WhatsApp. And actually the people that need it, potentially the elderly or the vulnerable, they don't all have smartphones or WhatsApp downloaded on them. And one of the ways we try to mitigate that is by training them. If they have got a smartphone but haven't got WhatsApp, we have had volunteers going round in setting up the WhatsApp messaging on their phone. I mean, the pandemic was awful, but actually one of the kind of silver linings was it made people catch up with the times, because when everyone was isolated in their own houses, the only way they could communicate was through technology. So that was certainly one of the hurdles, and it was quite time consuming. So we started back in 2018, and it was a few of us, so it wasn't just me, but it was something I felt very strongly about, because it really did help at times when people thought there was a burglar kind of on their street. It helped communicate messages very, very quickly, or where there was a pandemic and elderly people couldn't go to the shops. It allowed some sort of social mobility, communication, which I think sometimes lacks. People say the good old days, everyone knew each other on their roads, and I felt that was lacking for a number of years. And so that's something we're trying to counteract at the moment.
Wonderful way of bringing the community together, but also must be life-changing for some people, whereby they've never had the term WhatsApp, never heard of it or seen it before. Then suddenly they've got this fantastic communication tool for the community, for the neighbours to look into, so that they can all keep an eye on each other. What an amazing achievement.
Yeah, it's not my own. It's something I'm part of a team on, but we thought it was a good idea, and it's so simple because everyone uses WhatsApp, and those that didn't are getting trained onto it. So why don't we just use something that everyone's already using, but actually, communicating with the people that are around you that can maybe look out for you and help you when you need it. So yeah, that's certainly something that I feel quite strongly about, that kind of social cohesion. Social avoiding isolation, which I think in turn helps things like mental health and actual physical and mental security, which I think is so important as well.
Pranav, as a councillor, do you think the situation and society has deteriorated over the years, and therefore we need certain setups like the one we've just spoken about of bringing people together?
Well, yeah, I think one thing I have noticed is people, social media has the ability to make people feel very isolated. You just kind of focus on Instagram posts, and I find that people are actually meeting people less in person, and are just fundamentally just communicating via social media. So I think in terms of the word deterioration, I think whilst social media has made the world closer, it in many ways has brought people further apart where they could actually meet. So if someone lives at the end of their road, end of your road, you might just think about sending them a WhatsApp rather than actually just going to meet them. So I think there is a certain deterioration in terms of physical connection that human beings are generally having with each other. But I think I don't think social media should take the place of face-to-face meetings. And I think the more that can, and I appreciate over the past year we couldn't do it, but I really do feel that actually meeting face-to-face is fantastic, and actually it does create a real closeness and connection in a way that I don't think social media quite does. So hopefully, people will get back to actually meeting each other and getting to know their community and neighbourhoods when that becomes safe and possible.
I don't think anyone would disagree with that statement in any shape or form, Pranav. We're talking to Pranav Bhanot today, who is a lawyer as well as a councillor, and we talk about him and his life, not only as a lawyer, but also as a councillor as well. As we host this Living Bridge conversation, Pranav, let's hear about your reflections on the British Indian diaspora, fondly named the living bridge between India and the UK by the Indian Prime Minister, and the impact it makes on life in Britain and in India. What are your views on that?
So I think it's a great name, the Living Bridge, and the reason I think that is because it quite literally is. If you look at the Indian diaspora, which is the largest diaspora of any country, so then there's more Indians living in other countries,
yes,
than any other kind of host nation. So I think that's the first. I think that's something to be proud of. Whether you look at Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, America, the United Kingdom, there are huge numbers of Indians living in those countries and are making huge kind of contributions to the economy and otherwise. So I think. I think that's something to really be proud of. But I think there are a few challenges, and one of those is, the emotional attachment that perhaps our parents had with India because of maybe being born there. I think in time that could dilute, particularly if you're born in this country or born in other countries. So I think what's really important is finding strategies to keep people connected to India, and keeping that bridge alive between the diaspora and their home nation, or the nation of their ancestors. And I think that's something that does require a lot of hard work. I think some steps are being taken. I think iGlobal is a fantastic platform and initiative to do that. And I think there is a lot more to be done. I think the relationship between India and the UK has to go beyond cricket. It has to go beyond food. I know, we're at a juncture now where trade deals are being looked at, the environment is being looked at, security is being looked at. And I think what we want to make sure is that there continues to be more and more initiatives which attracts not only Indians to the United Kingdom, but British citizens living in the United Kingdom to India. Perhaps soft power may be a way to do that. I don't know, maybe things like pop concerts. We talked about sport. University and education is a great way. We have lots of Indian students coming to the United Kingdom, but I don't know how many British citizens go to India for education. So I think there is a lot of work that could be done, and a lot of work that is being done. I know much of the work is being led by India Inc. and iGlobal and other such organizations. But yeah, it's exciting times, I think, in the trajectory of India and UK relations.
You've explained the whole picture very well, and I also understand, reading between the lines of what you're saying, that we're going through an enormous change, and we're looking at, if I may give you the example, please, Pranav, of first generation, second generation, third generation Asians and Indians living in this country. Their parents who came across, lived in this country, worked very hard, and then their children who were either born abroad and brought up in this country. And then you've got the younger generation who are born in this country, and having that cultural awareness is so incredibly important. And you're quite right, iGlobal, India Inc. are doing a superb job, one which I'm very proud of because I happen to be working for them. But you're quite right. So what more do you think we could do living in this country, in the UK, to bring about more of that cultural awareness that you speak about?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is these conversations are fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on it. I think it's a great way to communicate messages. And I think, as I kind of alluded on previous answers, communication is key.
Yes.
And actually not just communication, but communicating in a way that the millennial generation and the various younger generations can relate to. And so that's what's so important. So things like, the conversations and discussions is certainly one of them. I think, Tony, you and I previously have just spoken about, artists who come from India. I know last night there was a Sonu Nigam who came. I know many from Punjab come to the United Kingdom. I think they're fantastic ways to keep that feeling of being proud of, who you are, the language you speak, and the product of India. alive. And I think that's such a powerful way, because one thing we know about the millennial generation is that music still very much resonates with them, and it's actually quite promising to see more and more successful Indian-born artists coming to the United Kingdom to promote their music. So I think that's music is.
I mean, music does definitely bring people together, and I wanted to just pick up on that point, if I may, Pranav.
Please.
And that is the amount of British artists traveling to India to perform there in concerts, and I can't think of anyone so far. And anyone who had perhaps remotely even got involved with the Indian culture in India goes far as back as the Beatles, in my opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I think the Beatles, I think the UB40 may have had some.
Yes,
there may have been some link there.
Yeah.
I think
wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to see a British artist to see them performing in big stadiums in India, because they have the infrastructure, of course they can, and they do know about British artists and music, because a lot of Indian music these days is influenced by Western style music.
I think that's so right. I mean, I'm sure Ed Sheeran could probably sell out the biggest, one of the biggest stadiums there, just as he can here.
You took the words out of my mouth, yes.
But,
yes.
I think that's right. I think it has to be a two-way process. So artists not just coming from India to the UK, but, British artists going there, because that forms part of this living bridge. Bridge generally, when you think of a bridge, you're talking about like a two-way traffic, not just a one-way traffic. So I think if there's more that can be done to promote that, I think the better. And I hope anyone listening to this who has any influence in that sphere could potentially make that happen.
Well, there you go. Pranav, you've planted the seed now, so I'm hoping somebody will pick up on that.
I think you planted the seed. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying.
No, it's a joint effort. So hopefully we'll have front row seats and tickets added to us because of that wonderful initiative. Finally, then, Pranav, your words of advice for other busy British Indian professionals who want to give back to society. We've just discussed it at great length today. We've given some fantastic examples thanks to you. So how can British Indian professionals give back to society and through this discussion?
It's a good question. The first is, we spoke about politics, but it doesn't have to be through politics. Politics is a great way, and I'll give some words of wisdom about how to get involved if any of your viewers or listeners do want to get involved. But the first thing is, there's so many good ways to do great pieces of work. You have 24 hours in a day. Even if you could allocate 1 hour to giving back, I think it's just one of the best things anyone can do. Yeah. So it may be through charity work. It could be tech, tech for good. It could be, just being a school governor, for example. So I really do advocate, if you are someone who is thinking about getting involved, just do it. Don't think too much about it. If you are somebody who wants to get involved in politics, I think I can certainly very, very quickly just give you a brief run view. I mean, think about which party you might wish to support. Sign up to your local association, whichever party that is. Have a coffee with the chair of that association. Get involved in campaigning. We've got London elections are coming up, and other local authority elections coming up next year. So perhaps get involved. It's a great time to kind of throw yourself in and get your name out there, and potentially, even put your hat in the ring to stand. Maybe not next year, but certainly in the next election cycle. So I think that's certainly one of the key things I would say. And for me personally, if you don't mind me saying, I think having good role models around you is so key.
Yes.
And I really still look very, very carefully and very closely at my role models who have influenced me for the past kind of 15 to 20 years. One of them is Manoj Ladwa, who you may be familiar with.
Indeed.
And I keep a very close eye on how he leads his life. He wakes up at 5 a.m. He has a solid team around him. He's very focused on what he wants to achieve. Now, everyone will have their own role models, but it's so important that whoever your role model is, in whatever sector or field it's in, try and study them, see what they do, see what you can incorporate in your life, because ultimately, that's what that's where you want to get to. If that's where you want to get to, look at what other people are doing who've already got there.
Yes. Yes, that was so very well said. And indeed, you mentioned the name of Manoj Ladwa, incredible person and fantastic mentor as well, and great to be a part of his team as well. It's a privilege and a pleasure as well. So we'll take a break and we'll take a look at some comments if we have any so far. And if you have just joined us, we've been talking with Pranav Bhanot, who is a lawyer and also a councillor as well. We're back after this break.
iEntertainment is brought to you by iGlobal for all the latest film and series reviews, story interviews and cinema listings covering Bollywood and beyond to reflect a truly pan-Indian entertainment spectrum. Check out the latest at iglobalnews.com.
So we get ready to wrap up the show, and we thank you for being with us here today. And of course, a huge thank you to Pranav as well. Pranav, once again, it's always a privilege and pleasure talking with you. And you are a mind of information. And I wish we had more time to talk some more. But we thank you for being with us here today with our Living Bridge conversation.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. And, you've said many times, I've got certain talents, but, to this day, you're still the only person I know who was a DJ and a fire eater all at one party.
Oh, yes.
Birthday party. So I must say you're a man of many talents. And thank you very much for having me and hosting this today.
I'm very humbled, and thank you for that wonderful reminder as well. Pranav, thank you very much indeed. Pranav Bhanot, lawyer and councillor who joins us today. So we wrap up the show, and thank you for being with us here today. And thanks to Pranav for joining us and taking time out of his busy schedule right here on iGlobal for the Living Bridge conversations. So that's the end of today's show. Remember, you can also play back any of the past sessions under the videos section of iglobalnews.com or on our Facebook and YouTube channels as well. And we're back tomorrow with a focus on Ayurveda, so don't miss that one. It's a must-see. For more Living Bridge conversations, stay tuned on our social media handles as well. Don't forget, you listen and watch us, and we will return the compliment to you. And don't forget to send in your entries to iGlobal's ongoing Diwali essay and photography contest to be in with a chance to win some excellent prizes. And indeed, any feedback at info@iglobalnews.com. That's info@iglobalnews.com. So that's it from me, Tony Patty. A huge thank you once again to Pranav, and thank you for watching and being part of our Living Bridge conversation today. From me, Tony Patty, bye-bye for now.